phrase goes something along like this, and normally you can, the last word or the condition is a little bit different, but it always follows pretty much the same line. And it goes like this: when conversing with a Protestant, the Protestant almost always answers, "I'll become a Catholic when they start believing in the Bible." Okay? Now, I've said this phrase hundreds, if not thousands of times in my life. In fact, I think it'd be safe to say that most Protestants have uttered something along these lines at least once or twice, okay, in their own lifetimes. If you haven't done it 100 times, if you haven't done it 1,000 times, maybe you've done it at least once or twice. But I think it's safe to say pretty much everybody's done that. Now, since my deciding to join the church, I've heard this come from family, friends, and bloggers alike. This is so common to us all that my going on for even the 2 minutes that I've been rattling off here is probably a waste of time. Okay? Now, I believe that Protestants are sincere. I'm not going to say that Protestants are insincere when they say this. I think that they're genuine. I believe that they have heartfelt disagreements with the church on various issues. I don't deny this. They believe with all of their heart that the Catholic Church is wrong on countless doctrines. I fear, though, this is my fear, is that while Protestants may mean well, I don't believe that they've really thought through what they're saying. I can say with the utmost conviction that as for me, that I didn't. And I don't think that I'm a pushover. I don't think I'm an intellectual midget. Okay, I'm no scholar. I'm no theologian. I'm really no apologist. I'm a video log hack here. But I don't think I'm an idiot. Okay, now some of you might disagree. Okay, but why do I say this? Why do I say that Protestants really haven't thought through this? Well, I think 3 reasons. While it may not just be limited to 3, I think that 3 for this vlog ought to suffice. Number 1, when people say, quote, "I will become Catholic," when they start believing in the Bible, they are harboring a false assumption. They are insisting that, well, Catholics don't believe in the Bible. Okay, we do believe in the Bible. We believe in the Bible a lot. Catholics most certainly believe in it. We love it. We read huge portions of it every single Sunday. Actually, if you went to an Easter vigil, you probably heard so much Scripture that it was making you nauseous, if that's even possible. If you attend a daily Mass, you would hear the Bible read almost all the way through in a 3-year span. Okay, there's not many churches out there that do that. Most churches have their pastors preach on a hobby horse. So you may never in a 20-year career, you may never preach out of a certain book of the Old Testament. Okay, you may not go verse by verse, chapter by chapter. Very few people, other than what is it? Calvary Chapel. I know Calvary Chapel does, but there's very few others that do that, line by line, verse by verse, chapter by chapter, book by book. Okay, but we do. We go through the entire thing in a 3-year span. And to be frank, we happen to be the ones who decided which letters or books were to be included within a canon, specifically the New Testament. Okay? As if this is not sufficient proof, the earliest manuscripts that Protestants have the Protestants have to glean from were put together by Catholics. The earliest manuscripts that Protestants have for their translations of the Bible, whether it's the New American Standard, the Revised Standard, whether it's the English the English Standard, whatever it may be, okay, whatever it may be, they rely upon the trustworthiness of manuscripts that had the fingerprints of priests and of bishops and of hermits and of monks all over them. The quills that touched the parchment belonged to someone who was part of the Catholic Church. So to say that we despise the Bible is absolutely nonsense. Many people have even given their lives for it. 2, when people say, "I will become a Catholic," when Catholics start believing the Bible, they really mean this. When Catholics start believing my private interpretation of the Bible. This is awfully problematic. So if we accept the doctrinal distinctives of one Protestant denomination, sure, we're going to make them happy. We may bring them in, depending on if we get rid of the ones that really tick them off. I mean, we may adopt some, but we may not get rid of others that tick them off, and they'll still stay separate. Okay, but if we do that, we may not even get them in. Furthermore, we're going to make a lot of our own really angry. So it's completely foolish. The whole thing is ridiculous. But even if the church were to adopt a mishmash of distinctives from all the Protestant sects together, it still wouldn't work. If we took our ecclesiology from the Presbyterians, preached tongues like the Pentecostals, held a view of the Eucharist like the Lutherans, ordained women and homosexuals like the Episcopalians, adhered to adult-only baptism of the Baptists, and adhered to seventh-day Sabbath of the Adventists, what would it actually accomplish? Nothing! It would accomplish nothing at all. Now why? Because it's an all or nothing. It really is. Protestant schism results from single-issue disagreements all the time. And regardless of how many people we bring over from doctrinal reform, the rest of the Protestants will keep saying the exact same thing. I will become Catholic when they start adopting my personal interpretation of a certain doctrinal issue. The third issue. If the Catholic Church abandoned the doctrines unique to herself and adopted the doctrines and practices included in the ultimatum that's given to us all the time, then the Church would no longer be the Church. It would be something quite different. It would, in essence, cease to be itself. The process would not be reform, it would be absorption. We would cease to be Catholic. Instead, we would be any of the 25, 30, or more than 30,000 Protestant denominations out there, and we may just be an extra one added on top of that. We'd stop being what we are. In the end, we see that this claim is about as thought out as it is realistic. Now, here's my advice. Here's my advice. And in all humility, I think that Protestants ought to begin saying, ought to begin doing this. Instead of saying, I will become Catholic when Catholics start believing in the Bible, I think that Protestants need to begin saying this, quote, I will become Catholic when Catholics stop being Catholic and start believing just like